Joe Hall from the WordPress Accessibility Day Organizing Committee, and I am here today with the legendary Amber Hines and Steve Jones from Equalize Digital. This is such an epic moment. I get to hang out with these two amazing folks. This is a little bit different because these interviews are usually steered by Amber, but she's taking a
Mm-hmm.
break today so that she can talk a little bit about herself and her company, and I get the pleasure of interviewing them.
Yeah, well,
God,
hopefully you won't
uh,
ask too many hard questions.
well, I don't have very many hard questions at all, so don't worry. But I'm so happy to be here with you guys. Before we dive into the really exciting stuff, because I know you guys have a lot of exciting stuff coming down the pipeline. Before we get into that, give us a brief rundown of Equalize Digital, what you guys do, your core offerings, and maybe some of the things you enjoy most.
Sure. Do you want me to go first, Steve?
Sure.
Yeah. So I think most people know me as an organizer of WordPress Accessibility Day, but in my day job, I am the CEO at Equalize Digital. We're a certified B corporation, which means we are a for-profit company that has a triple bottom line. We are not just trying to benefit shareholders, we're also trying to benefit the community and our customers and our employees, and really give back. And we all we do is WordPress accessibility because it's a passion for us. We do accessibility auditing and remediation. We have those in like retainer based packaging plans because we're trying to make accessibility auditing something that is easier to include for even smaller businesses that maybe can't go out and pay for a big audit. You could do small audit and fixes every month. And then we do custom website development, and we have a plugin which I'll hand off to Steve, and I'll let Steve introduce himself and he can talk about the plugin, because honestly, while I've had some ideas and input on the plugin, Steve is the great mastermind behind the plugin.
Well, I'm Steve Jones, a little less legendary than Amber. I I enjoy being a little bit more behind the scenes, but I'm the CTO here at Equalize Digital, and I handle all things technology. Uh, you know, Amber mentioned our accessibility products and services, and I'm behind the scenes a lot of times, making sure that we're, from a coding standpoint, that we're executing and delivering fully accessible products and websites to clients.
That's awesome. Now, I actually have had a chance to play around with the plugin a little bit, and I love it. It is super easy to use. One of the things I love most about the plugin is that you guys have it integrated into the post editor screen.
Mm.
Amber, we were just talking about, the work that I do is mostly SEO. I work with a lot of people
Mhm.
that write content, you know, and I love the fact that you can be writing a blog post or developing, a piece of content and check its accessibility in that process. So it's just great to see that. I know that you guys have lots of plans in the future, and you recently announced something very exciting the last month or so with this new partnership. Do you guys want to talk a little bit about that and tell us a bit about how that came to happen? I'm really curious about what type of magic you guys did to make that happen because it's pretty amazing. I don't think any other WordPress company has done what you've done in this regard, and I'm really curious to know more about that and how that's going to impact the products and services that you guys offer in the future.
Yeah, so I think what you're talking about is our partnership with NASA, or that we're a vendor on the NASA project. And I will tell you the whole how did we get that?
Yes.
It came from being involved in the WordPress community. 100%. That's how. So I organized WP Campus, which is another independent event centered around WordPress. And there's WP Campus community on Slack, which I highly recommend everyone check out. And I was an organizer in. I'm I think it was 2021, and then I think the event didn't happen in 2022. It was one of those 2 years. And through that and my involvement in that community, I met JJ Toothman, who works at Lone Rock Point, and Lone Rock Point is the developers for the NASA website project. And so he connected with me and asked if we'd be interested in coming on board as the accessibility team on that project. So we did all of the auditing, remediation. We also did user testing with people who are blind and use screen readers every day on that NASA website, and have passed our auditing feedback on to their development team so that they can improve the website and ensure that it is accessible, which is an ongoing process.
Yeah.
And so really, honestly, that came from me being involved in the community and giving back and like participating, not in a commercial or marketing or sales stance. Like we didn't go out and like pitch NASA or respond to an RFP. It was really just like building relationships that brought us that work. And I think that's part of why communities like WP Campus or WordPress Accessibility Day or the WordPress Accessibility Meetup, like being involved in the WordPress community can be really helpful on that front. And then they told us that they were going to use the plugin. Actually, they told us it was part of their choice. When NASA was deciding what CMS to build in, our plugin was one of the reasons that they decided to use WordPress over another CMS. So that was really neat to hear. And then they messaged us and they were saying they had a lot of users that were non-technical and they wanted to know how we could make it easier. And so Steve, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about what we did and came up with there, which they ended up funding the development of.
So our plugin previous to the NASA partnership and with Lone Rock with JJ, when you would scan the page, like you were mentioning, Joe, like our plugin lives inside your post editor, just like Yoast, the Yoast SEO plugin would. And you would scan and you would get code snippets of where the issues were on your site, right? So for a non-technical person, a lot of times code just looks like gibberish to them, right? They can't understand it. They don't know where to go to find the issue, right? So our first step was on issues that were related to like images, we inline the image right there on the edit screen. So you can see, like, if it pertains to an image, you can see the image right away. But then we took it a step further and we created a whole front end to our plugin. So now there's a button. If you see you can still see the code snippet, and there's a button that says View on Page. You click that button, it flips over to the front side of that post or page, and then it automatically highlights that issue. It puts like a little border around it, and then you have a panel with the description of the issue with links over to our documentation on how to fix it. And from there, you can continue to look through your issues on the front end. There's a next and a previous button where you could just keep hitting next and it'll highlight the next issue. Sometimes there's issues where we can't identify the actual issue on the page, right? Like whether it be that the element is hidden.
Like maybe it's in a pop-up. Right.
It's either outside the bounds of the visible area, or it's actually got a display none on it, like a CSS display none on it. So we actually added in a disable styles button, so you can disable all your styles, and then it'll still highlight all those issues without your CSS there. So you can highlight any things that are kind of hidden that you can't see. So yeah, it actually it creates a whole visual front end to help you identify where those issues are on your website.
It's so interesting because it sounds like your plugin has kind of evolved along the same course and direction that a lot of WordPress industry has gone in, where we keep hearing about like these no-code solutions or these non-technical solutions to development or design. And it sounds like you guys are doing what you can to meet those demands in the market the best way you can. And I think that's really refreshing to hear that kind of strategy from a company or I guess a area of WordPress that sometimes runs against that grain because sometimes it's difficult from an accessibility standpoint to work with some of these companies or technologies that are building no code solutions. So it's nice to
Yeah.
see. It's nice to see you guys kind of meeting them halfway. Um, I I I'm not as pleasant as y'all. I normally just feel like I'm normally just like, oh, screw them. They don't know what they're doing.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
it's nice that you guys are meeting them halfway, and you're incorporating the best practices ways of getting accessible sites in a way that makes sense for folks that maybe not comfortable with code and whatnot. So that's
Yeah, I
really
mean, I think like that's something we've really talked about a lot. And that's part of why, and I saw on Facebook, we actually had a comment from someone that said they just installed the free version of the plugin today. So that's kind of cool. I can't see your name. There's like, you have to go somewhere in order to get your approve your name, but someone
someone
said
did,
in
yeah.
Facebook that, yeah. And like we've talked a lot about that, like how do we make this balance of creating a tool that is really useful even for non-technical users that don't know code, or that or even like people that have very small budgets. So maybe
Mhm.
you're a personal blogger that hasn't monetized your website at all, or a very small business that is DIYing it and you're not even hiring a web developer. And so that's a big part of, with the front end highlighting, we decided to put that in free because we think it's really helpful in helping everyone understand how to use the plugin. We didn't want to make that a pro feature, and we really want it to be, even at the free level, really useful for people, because ultimately that's what's going to make a difference for accessibility on the web.
Yeah.
Like we're talking about 40+ percent of websites are built with WordPress, but not all of them are websites that were built by a dev team and have a big budget. Like probably the vast majority are built by people who think that spending $25 a month on hosting is expensive.
So, so
Right?
here, yeah. So, for the question for you, before we started the live stream, we were talking a bit about how the three of us are business nerds, and so
Yeah.
from a business strategy perspective, how do you think that impacts your business and the way that you guys kind of market yourself by leaving yourself open to an array of different types of websites and other organizations that you might interface with? Because I know with my business, I oftentimes think that I'm not helping these smaller businesses out because they're not positioned, with budgeting or whatnot in the right ways. But what you guys are doing is you really are opening yourself up to all these new opportunities, at least in my mind, at least, with folks that maybe wouldn't normally be able to hire a full time dev or something. Um,
Hmm.
so do you think that approach does kind of help you out a little more from a business strategy or help with marketing or business development at all?
Yeah, I mean, I think in our effort to equalize the web, right, for make the web inclusive for anybody regardless of their ability, right? I think that we have to also be inclusive of people that aren't developers,
Yeah.
and that's the push with this front end highlighting piece, right? And like Amber alluded to, from a business standpoint, it would have been wise, probably from a business standpoint, to include that in our pro plugin, our paid plugin, right? Because that's a good upsell, right? You want to be able to view these visually, but I think in our company, a lot of times we're balancing. We're Amber mentioned we're a B Corp. We're always balancing, what's good for the company, the shareholders, and what's good for the community, and what's good for the web as a whole, right? So sometimes we make decisions in regard to where a feature goes, whether it goes in our free or our pro plugin, that maybe from a business standpoint doesn't financially always make sense, right? But for the greater good of our mission as a company, it does.
Yeah.
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 I think too, though, like, it's interesting because in the WordPress space, we see a lot of times conversations, and we could probably go down a whole rabbit hole about this with
Yeah.
plugin pricing and how in
Yeah,
WordPress, like a lot of people don't pay for things that like in other CMSs or software, you don't have that experience as much. But I think that there are ways to, still be profitable and have a robust free product. And so I think, like that's something that we're trying to balance and trying to work out. But I do think to some degree, like having a solid, for any plugin developer, having a solid free product that makes people want to use it, like that's good. And then those people, even if they can't afford to pay, they are probably more likely to tell other people about it. And then maybe those people will, right? As opposed to if you have something that's very limited, like I've seen accessibility plugins that are like, you can scan the homepage of your website and that's it. And then you have to pay.
Yeah.
And we had a lot of conversations about that because in our free plugin, you can scan unlimited posts and pages. It's not API connected, so we don't have any cost. It's all on their server. So we were like, why would we be like, oh, you can only do your homepage or you can only do 10 pages?
Yeah.
Like if the goal is to make the web more accessible, like let's give people the tools. And then if we start to see a division, like for us, we started like, what's the division where a website is probably a business website and not just like a standard WordPress blog, or it's a more complex business website as opposed to a basic brochure. Like a basic business brochure site could probably use our free plugin forever.
Yeah.
And that's totally fine with us. And so like we tried to figure out what that line is.
Yeah.
And then because if we start saying it's just the homepage, then how does that achieve the goal of making the internet more accessible for people with disabilities?
I think a lot of businesses in the WordPress space and also in the freemium model space have to kind of change their the formula they use to calculate ROI. I had a business mentor once tell me I was talking to him at an event in Vegas, and I was complaining. I was like, yeah, I just spent like so much money coming out here to this event. I don't know if I'm going to make anything back. And he said, how do you know? Like you may not know.
Yeah.
He said you may not know the return on this for like 3 or 4 years. And it's so true because like when I like you were talking about Amber, you guys made that connection with NASA through your involvement in the community at an event, and maybe you never anticipated that going into it, and you never really
definitely did not.
and yeah, and then you didn't, and then maybe you didn't even think about it, for like a year, maybe 6 months after the event, you didn't even tune into you or whatever. So you really never know what what you're doing from a business standpoint, the stuff that you're not charging for, how it's going to pay off, and sometimes the return on that type of work can be huge, and it may not really manifest until years later,
Yeah.
So yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think for us too, like as a B Corp, something we've talked about, and I'll say here, I have no idea what the timeline is, so I'm not trying to put Steve on the spot, but like something we've talked about is one thing I would really love us to do with our plugin at some point. We have a long list of ideas, right? But I want to build the ability for people to opt into anonymized data sharing. And one of the things that we want to do is we want to build an open, like a public dashboard where anyone can see the accessibility status of websites who use our plugin. Because I think one that would be really good to provide a more clear understanding of what accessibility is like. And we might even be able to be like, oh, plugins with or websites with plugin X are more accessible than, or the other direction, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do those, which I think would be good for the community as a whole. But I know one thing, like when we get to that point and we're able to start getting that data, like for me, like ROI is not just about the money we're making. Like I would really like to be able to be like, someone installed their plugin or our plugin, on average they had this many errors, and this many contrast, and this many warnings, and then after 6 months or a year it's down this much.
Yeah.
Like I want, like, if we can get that data, then I'm going to tell you that we always do, we meet and we put SMART goals for the year, and like we figure out, like, as a company what we're going to do. And I will 100% be like, we have an ROI goal, which we might even make public, right? Like, how can we build a better tool so that we can say that our tool did this number of improvements or improved WordPress as a whole in some way? And so for me, like, I think, you have to think about ROI beyond money, right? Like there are other ways that you can really see a return on your efforts.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that I back to our event, WordPress Accessibility Day, Emery, you know that I focus mostly on the sponsorships, and so I am really just thinking about money all the time, and
and thank you for that, because you and Bet Hannon did a phenomenal job with getting sponsors this year.
It was easy. It was easy because we have an incredible event, and it's easy to raise money for that. But I will say, what you said about having this broader scope of ROI, I think that you are so right about that. But I will say that if you are focused on money, I think you tend to make more money with your approach. And not,
if you're not focused on money.
Yeah, exactly. Because it becomes sometimes the wrong metric can be the wrong goal, and sometimes money, you actually end up making more money if you are focused on other things. You're focused on improving your community and being more a part of your space in a positive way. That usually turns out to be a good way to make money, All right, so I do want to mention, I just mentioned the event. It is next week, and as you can see, I'm wearing the shirt for the event. Amber and Steve, I know you guys both have this shirt already, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know about you guys, but every time I wear this shirt, I get so many compliments. Okay.
So for people who can't see, it says working towards an accessible web, WordPress Accessibility Day 2023. The working towards an accessible web is much bigger, and accessible is in yellow. And then we have part of our new logo on there, which is like the accessibility starfish guy. That's what I call him. I don't know what he's called.
That's right. Yeah.
He's got his arms out and his legs out, like in starfish pose.
Exactly.
He's doing yoga.
Yeah, so this is a great t-shirt. And if anyone watching this video would also like to receive lots of compliments when they wear a t-shirt, they can go to our website, wpaccessibility.day, and order this t-shirt along with your event registration. You don't have to get the t-shirt. The event is actually free to register, so either way. But if you want a t-shirt, go ahead and place an order for it there. And it's a great shirt to wear year round. I have the shirt, Amber, you're wearing is from last year's event.
Yeah, let's see. I'm too far away, but
oh, there you go. Yeah. So that was last year's shirt, which, by the way, that design is also incredible. And
thank you.
So I still wear that one as well. But yeah, they make great shirts. You guys should definitely check that out. And also register for the event, because it's going to be an amazing event. 24 hours of amazing WordPress accessibility information from all over the world. We've got some really great speakers, a really great keynote lined up for this year. So it's going to be a phenomenal event. Amber, you are, of course, one of the lead organizers of the event this year. Do you want to touch on anything that you're excited about, or what you think is going to be a big moment this year?
So, even though we said last year, we figured out we're not changing our technology. We did decide to change our technology this year, which of course, hopefully, knock on wood, it will go well. But what I'm really excited about is we ended up deciding to do Zoom webinars because Zoom came out with this ASL interpreter view.
Yeah.
So last year, and throughout the event, we collect feedback. This is another way you can get t-shirts. You can submit feedback for speakers or just overall event feedback. And you have the option when you do that, if you want to get entered to win a t-shirt, we'll give out 30 t-shirts after the event, randomly selected. But one of the pieces of feedback we got last year, we were streaming from StreamYard over to a YouTube video, which we embedded in our website. And really, there's only one way to view it. And whatever the person managing the stream set up, that was the way it was. And frequently people said that if they needed the interpretation, that the interpreters were too small, or sometimes we tried to make the interpreters bigger, and then other people said that it made it hard for them to read the slides. The slides weren't big enough then. And so what we love about Zoom webinars, and we've played with this a whole bunch, we probably had like at least 6 test webinars where we've all gone in and played with different things, is that every attendee is going to be able to control your own view. So if you want the slides really big and the speaker small, you can do that. If you want, the speaker bigger, and then it has this ASL view, so it will actually open up the interpreter in a separate window, which you can overlay. Or if you have 2 monitors, like, I don't know, raise our hand. We all probably have at least 2 monitors.
I got 3.
You've got 3, Steve. Yeah,
I got 3.
You can put your interpreter on a separate monitor and have the interpreter really big, and then have the Zoom, So I am actually very excited just about how it's going to run. I think it's going to be more accessible, and it'll be easier for people to do Q&A and chat and stuff doing it that way. There are so many talks that it's hard to shout any of them out.
I have a couple that.
Do you have some, Steve, that you're looking forward to?
So I'm going to butcher these last names of the speakers, but
I know that was feedback we got. I was like, maybe next year we need to ask people to give us phonetic pronunciations of names, and we'll put it on their profile.
I mean, overall, I'm excited to see this come to fruition. I've got a little bit of a front seat to some of the behind the scenes, with Amber's involvement and helping organize this. So I'm definitely excited to see this all come to fruition, and I'm going to stay up for 24 hours. I'm not going to sleep. I'm going to watch everyone.
Are you really?
Wow.
No.
I think last year I slept for 3 hours, but this year we have more technical admins running the stream, and so I'm excited that I might get more than 3 hours of sleep.
So I have 2 that kind of stood out to me. The first one is the alt text in the age of automation, how it's actually going, by Caroline Desrosier. I butchered that last name. Forgive me, but
at what time? Can you say what time they are too? Or the
that
UTC
talk
time?
Is at 7 p.m. New York time, 23 UTC.
Cool.
And the other one I thought was interesting, and this is kind of like a little bit of a selfish one for me, but plot a course, creating accessible SVG charts in WordPress. And this is by Joni Halaby. That's at 2 UTC. That's 10 o'clock New York time. And so this is a little bit of a tie-in with our plugin. We're working on creating some historical audits inside of our plugin. It's going to be a new feature where you could track the historical progress of, where your website audit history was at different segments through time. And this is going to include some charts in it. So behind the scenes with my development team, we're thinking about adding charts into here, and how do we make them accessible? What framework do we use? Is the framework accessible itself? So I've been doing a little bit of testing in regards to that. So I have
That's
a little bit of
awesome.
a little bit of a selfish reason for liking this talk, but those are the two
So
that I'm kind of, yeah.
There's another one on that same note. Mary Alvarado, possibly is how you say her name. Complex data visualizations and the accessibility phenomena. So that one also, Steve, you should tune in for. I think it's so it says 1800 UTC, so that'd be 2 p.m. in New York. So yeah, the whole adding charts and all of that, which I'm excited to do it in the plugin, but I'm definitely a little nervous. But for us, we're very, like, we do a lot of accessibility testing before we release features. We have testers on our team who, as part of what we pay them, they'll screen reader test for us. And then also our devs and myself will also screen reader test, but we do think it's important to have users screen reader test things as well. And they record videos for us, just because the way I use a screen reader is not the same way somebody who uses it every day.
Yeah. We're not trying to make a WordPress plugin that evaluates accessibility and is not accessible itself. So we take a lot of measures in our own plugin itself, even in the admin of WordPress, to try to make sure that it's accessible as well.
Well, that's great.
Yeah. So on that note, I'm giving a lightning talk. It's like in the middle of the night. When are the lightning talks? I don't know. I can't remember. Go look at the schedule. You'll see something that says lightning talks. and on some of the things that we've done to make our plugin more accessible. Raghavendra Satish Perry, who's one of our testers, he recorded some testing using our plugin with a screen reader that's going to be included in that talk. So if you want to learn more, like, that's also another good talk to tune in.
Okay. Yeah. I'm looking forward to that. Amber, you mentioned earlier we did change our technology setup for this event. And I'll say that, prior to getting involved with this event, I did a lot of different disability related, events. And I am always amazed at how much effort is put into this one to make it accessible. I mean, obviously, the whole event is about accessibility. It should be accessible, But really, the team, a big kudos to the team for putting in so much effort, making sure that the event is accessible, and that not only is it accessible, but our entire process is accessible. We go through everything from onboarding our sponsors to making sure the website and everything else works in an accessible way. And that's put in a lot of work by everyone up behind the scenes, and a substantial investment as well. So kudos to everyone on our organizing team for putting in the effort to make that possible. And really, I think Beth and I were talking about this about a month ago, that ideally the event should be sort of a model for the way that other events should operate for accessibility, And so anyone that comes to the event next week that's considering doing a virtual event in the future, take notes on the way that we kind of operate, because I think that we've, like you said, done lots of trial and error on what works and what doesn't work. Obviously, we can always improve, and we'll make improvements for next year as well, But it is nice to see all the work that's been done to get us to this point. So that's awesome. Well, we're coming up at a little bit after the half hour. This has been such a great talk, and I've loved learning more about Equalize Digital for the last 30 minutes. Before we sign off, though, did you guys have anything else that our viewers or listeners might need to know about Equalize Digital or anything else?
Well, so the other thing I will shout out, if you go register at 2023.wpaccessibility.day, you can then, once you've registered, you'll get an account on the website and you'll be able to access swag and giveaways. And we are going to give away a small business license that's a 5-site license for the plugin. So if you visit our sponsor page, you can enter to win that. So definitely go. And yeah, we're always open to feedback. We very much appreciate when people give us feedback or open support issues or ask questions about the plugin or give us ideas for features they would like to see. It's still kind of a new thing for us. And I say that multiple years into doing it, Steve. I don't know what you feel, but I feel like we're like always iterating.
It's good. And I'll go a step further too. A lot of people, even on the WP Accessibility Day organizing team have submitted pull requests. We accept pull requests. If you're a developer out there and you see something in the plugin and then you got some time to contribute to the plugin, we're happy to review that pull request as well.
Yeah, it's on GitHub. It's all open source. We're a big fan of open source and WordPress and all of that in general. So
yeah.
So awesome. Thank you.
All right, cool. Well, this has been a great conversation. I am so excited about next week. Please, if you guys haven't yet, go ahead and register for your ticket for next week's event at 2023.wpaccessibility.day and check us out on our socials as well. And Amber, Steve, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much, and I will talk to you guys next week.